saying, number one, oh, wait, hit your record thing. There we go. Number one is, what's the one thing that I can do? Not that can happen, not that somebody else might do, not if it all rolls this way, it'll be, no. What's the one thing that I can do? You have the power. So that's the first step in the question. And number two, such that by doing it, such that by doing that one thing, it'll have some power and some purpose there. It's specific. There's a specific purpose. So there's one thing I can do, and this is the thing, right? And that is and when I do those two things, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary. So that's the test of the question. So the question is really important when you're making those decisions. And as far as it being my one thing, like there's only one answer and I want my family and the whole thing, if you turn to page, this is my favorite page in the book, page 114, if you take those questions and you turn to page 114 and you see those circles and you consider those as the segments of your life, then you apply the focusing question to each one of those sections. You see how that works? Anybody else have that aha or have anything to take away from there? The other thing, I was in a different book club, a different seminar on this, and we spent probably about 2 weeks on page 114. And one of the thoughts was also to pick your mentor in each one of those circles. Going back to this morning's call when we talked about nobody succeeding alone, okay? You don't have to actually figure this out on yourself. Success leaves clues. People have lived before you. People have had a big business and a fabulous family life. You know, so it's okay to concentrate on different parts of your life, apply that question, and look for guidance there. That help anybody?
This is an interesting subject. I hope you don't regret bringing this up with me because, mentors are wonderful, but they're also elusive.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I don't know whether I put people on a pedestal, but it's hard to find people that, I don't know how to explain this. I find it can be a challenge to find people who really want to work with you in terms of accountability. People will say they do, but it's hard sometimes to find people that actually, and I get it because we're all busy. I really get it. We're all busy, but
so here's what I'll just offer, and then we'll move on. This is a different subject. I'm happy to have that conversation another time. But here's what I want to give to you. Keep looking.
Right.
You haven't found the right person yet. And as you grow, as we all grow, sometimes the mentors change for good reason. But yeah, keep looking. Keep looking. Anybody else take anything away from the power?
I didn't try the MAPS coaching yet, but I believe they are very good and they keep you accountable and they drive you to your goal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about Tony.
Yeah, having a coach of any kind, MAPS or whatever, and of course MAPS knows our model, so that's not a bad place to start. But coaching in general it's always great to have accountability, somebody who is in there for you and can say, now, is that what we said we were going to do? Keeping you accountable. Going back to the focusing question, is that really your one thing, and how is it? It all ties together in that way. Does anybody else see? Talk to me about the power of the question. Did that strike anybody else? Because the whole thing is based on this one question.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry, I was on the phone.
Okay, so what we were doing is breaking down the question. What's the one thing that if by doing it, everything else is easier and necessary? But breaking it down to the three sections that is broken down in the book. The first part being, what's the one thing I can do? That's really specific language. It's not what the one thing that can happen, or the one thing that maybe if I got around to it. What's the one thing that I can do? The second part being such that by doing it, and it being that one thing, okay, focus your mind on these words are really laid on top of each other for a reason. By doing it, here, the third part, everything else will be easier or unnecessary. That becomes the test for the question that you're asking. And what does, when we define that down in the different sections of our life, but for today, let's just talk about, we'll talk about two. You could talk about business, you could talk about family, unless you have some other burning desire. But let's focus on that too, because there are 7 here. And by the way, I found out from reading this book, I don't know, bazillion times in groups of people, that there are some people that actually believe that these circles are somewhat in order going clockwise. So that's just a little thought to tuck back for another reason, another reading. But how, if we focus on the question and the segments of our life and knowing what our long-term plan is, 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, this year, how does that, what does that help us find if we're going to go small before we go big? What is our one thing? What's another word for our one thing?
Our why.
Priority.
Say? So
Tony said priority and I said our why.
our why, exactly, exactly.
I would say why too.
Both of them. It's our big why, exactly. And that's what propels us into action. It's also, just going with the theme of the book, that's our one domino. That's our first domino. And we've talked a little bit about domino theory in here, in the book, in this section, about if we line up that, we get that first domino, that first priority, and it's connected to our big why. We get that teeny little first step, the power that it has to knock down the other dominoes behind us.
So if you would like, I'm sorry.
No, please go.
Yeah, if you would like, I have a thought to share.
Please.
Thank you. Yeah, because I have taken both 5 or 6 or 7 times, I don't know. In my mind, I've taken it 8 times. In any case, I noticed that the first time I was introduced to this question, what is your why? I got totally irritated by it because it was so foreign to me. Because first of all, I'm a foreigner here, and I realized how much I've missed in my life by not giving the opportunity to explore this new world and new environment. And then every year I was still pushing myself. And I'm like, okay, if everyone has a why, and if everyone is saying that it's so important to find it, why on earth am I not doing it? I have to do it. I have to figure it out. So I was doing activities that I didn't want to do, and I was pushing myself through until it finally hit me. One day it just hits you. One day you just wake up and you get it, and then you are not your old self anymore. Then you are just your new self.
Exactly.
And you know it. You just know it, you feel it, and you dedicate your life to it. And if you ask me what is my one thing, I just want to mention that last year was my best year ever in my life. And I felt like I didn't do anything to achieve what I achieved because I was focused on me. I was focused on my mindset, on my growth, self-growth, I mean. I was participating in as many groups as I could and picking up from people and learning and applying. and then the results just manifested by themselves, I should say. So for me, this one thing is me, and I know, I'm sure every one of you know, that you cannot change anything else but yourself. So
Yes.
the moment you change yourself and the moment you dedicate your activities to changing yourself to become who you would like to be in order to reach the goal that you eventually would like to reach, everything just comes into place so flawlessly.
I agree with you, Silva. And here's what I want to share. I love what you said. And I know that when it happens, because it happened to me between 2020 and 2022 also. And I had been working on a different big why, only to find out that that was actually not the right big why when other things were exposed to me. Right. And that can happen too. And I was fully dedicated to that other why, only to find out that that was great, but that wasn't really it. But Silva, here's my challenge to you. Here's what I'm saying. You woke up one morning and all of a sudden I knew. You knew that you had been working on that in your mind and in your heart for a long, long time. That's how all of a sudden it all came together. You know, there's work being done, you know, either consciously or unconsciously. And that's what, you know, bringing this sort of thing into your focus drives you to. And then when it does come together, you're absolutely right. If we go over to page 133 and the pyramid, the iceberg, you know, they segment it, and the bottom part that's under the water is your purpose. And then the next one just below the surface is the priority. And that, the part that you see, that's the productivity, that's the production. And that is all driven from that purpose at the beginning. That's your big why, that's your domino, that's the focus of it. But it comes from thinking about, what do I want? Right? And being, and where, how do I get there? But really spending some time with it. Do you agree?
I agree 100%. And I participated in Wesley Virgin's groups. I participated in Bob Proctor, let his soul rest in peace, he just passed. And I was his student for a year, and I continue to be his student. Speaking of coaches, everyone is teaching you the same, like Think and Grow Rich. It is based on the same. What do you want? Sit down and write down, what do you want? So this is the greatest challenge of the century, of your life. Once you figure out what you want and you write it down, for some reason you actually have to write it down. It should, yeah, absolutely. And if you have to write it down like 100 million times, just write it down 100 million times and start with one time a day. Yeah, so yeah, that's the $1 million question. What do you want?
What do I want? And sometimes it takes time and it takes some evolution. Like I said, I had one for years and years and years. And then all of a sudden at a more advanced age, I was like, well, wait a minute. And when you know it, when you get it and it's right, like you said, Silva, it's like you're just coasting, not coasting, but you know, it's like everything clicks on all cylinders and you just keep moving forward. And you know, finding that purpose, of course, that's the thing that is the hardest, to decide what that is, because to decide that means you have to decide no to other things. And I find that sometimes that's when the focusing question can come in to be very useful. Is anybody else having trouble finding their purpose and that focus that drives them? No, just Silva and I were the only two.
I do trouble when I, like in the evening, I do trouble when I'm using too much technology. That's my struggling part. Mornings, super productive, very good. But like as soon as I get hooked up on technology, talking to people, to clients and doing stuff, I'm like, I can find my focus.
Yeah. And why do you think that is?
I think overwhelming.
Overwhelming? What part is that? I wasn't expecting that answer. So tell me what do you mean and where does that come from?
I think just because of, you know, I'm spending too much time like with clients talking on the phone, that's like just drain my energy, Donna.
Ah, yes. Anybody else having that struggle?
I don't have it anymore. I used to have it in 2019.
Uh-huh.
And that's when I started to understand that I need a shift in my energy and my focus and
Mhm.
learning how to say no. So I purposefully am showing you what's behind me. When I realized that I was drained and in 2019, and I was like Anna talking to clients and I was not doing anything else until I actually completely started to hate what I was doing. That's when I started to join different groups and I realized that I don't know what I want. I didn't know what I want. I
Uh-huh.
didn't have any dreams. As probably most of you know what I went through. So I felt like it was the end of my life and that's it. And that's it. I don't know what I want. So I don't want anything. So be it. And then I was lucky enough to come across this Wesley Virgin team. They're very big on mindset. So they put me into this. I had to cut 100 pages of something that I dream about, something that excites me, something that I would like to do.
Right.
And I put a dream board of a wall. I have 2 walls of dreams. So this is what actually made me get excited back in the game. And as a matter of fact, I started doing videos. I monetized my YouTube channel just by participating in this group.
Sure.
And I won, out of 6,000 people, I won actually my iPhone free. Because I was the only one out of 6,000 people who did this in one night. I had to put 100 pictures on the wall to kind of make myself think about something.
Yeah.
Not about emptiness and the O word, Anna, which by the way, we don't use anymore.
Well, I use it sometimes. Carly, did I see your hand up, Carly?
Okay, I finally figured out how I'm driving, so I'm like dialed in.
Oh, be
I
careful.
finally figured out how to talk.
Okay.
So I can definitely relate to Anna. I've been feeling, I mean, the past like couple weeks since like these book clubs, I've really been trying to like refocus, and like stop being busy and start being productive. And I can totally relate to her, like that feeling of just being overwhelmed and burnt out, and like everybody, you know, calling you constantly. And I have a client who gives me an update every single day on one of his investment properties, and I'm like, oh my god, like I don't have time to like, you know, like I don't have time to be like talking to you and sending multiple texts back and forth about this. So I feel like it's hard to regain that focus a little bit and find that one thing when you are feeling super overwhelmed, because lately my one thing has been, how can I stop feeling like this? And how can I stop feeling burnt out? And how can I stop feeling miserable? Because I just feel so overwhelmed and so tired. And my friend, you know him as well, Dave DeVito, has been like, I think our focus for you, because we're doing some business planning together. He's like, the main thing that I'm going to try to help you with is for you to have those boundaries and really like implement them and not get burnt out. So I feel like once I get to that point, which is my main focus right now, I feel like I'll be able to be much more productive. But starting off in the industry last year, you know, I didn't really have any guidance prior to coming to Keller Williams a month and a half ago. So I feel like I had completely different expectations, and I thought people had certain expectations of me as well that just weren't healthy and were just overboard. So now I feel like my one thing is to try to find that balance and find the productivity instead of the busyness and constantly feeling like everything revolves around work and everything.
Yeah, no, totally, Carly, I totally get that. And this is where the the focusing question. But whoever who making all the background noise, if we could just cut that out, it'd be easier. Okay, thanks. Thank you.
I'm so sorry, Donna. I thought I'm muted. Sorry.
Oh, okay. All right. No worries. No worries. And here's the thing about I'll just say it, about our life journey is when we know better, we do better. And if you're new to something, this business, let's say, you come in, like we said, you have your image of what success is. You probably had your image of what being a real estate agent was. And then when you're smacked in the face with what it really is, managing a schedule, looking for leads, doing all that other stuff that maybe you weren't quite so clear on, now that you are. And yeah, that's a great question, Carly. What is it that I can do right now so I don't feel like I'm feeling? So I feel healthier, more productive, more involved, more in control. That is the question. And I'm just going to share, people call me Auntie Donna on the morning call for a reason. I mean, that's not a question for another day. That's a question for today. That's not a question for when I have time and things calm down, because they're not going to, and you won't have more time and they won't calm down until you come up with that. And yeah, it's tough and still needs to be done. So, going back to this focusing question and say, where do I want to get to? And what do I need to do today that will be the first step to get to that, and not doing the other things. We read the Millionaire Real Estate Agent before we did this one. It gives you a clear schedule of what your day should look like. There, just start with that. This book, in this chapter, I think I wrote down, you're a maker in the morning and you're a manager in the afternoon. That ensures that you get to control. And this section goes into time blocking as well. So lots of.
I definitely need to get better with that. And I always had the expectation of, like, you're in real estate, it's a 24/7-hour job. And now, since all these meetings, I'm like, no, it's not, because it's not sustainable. It's not healthy. And I'm not getting paid 24/7 to work for people. So I need to have a life as well. And I think that's been the biggest thing that's going to help me not reach that point of complete burnout. So I shut my phone off yesterday we were away this weekend for our anniversary, and I shut my phone off yesterday for the first time in 13 months. And it was so very needed.
And empowering. How did it feel?
It felt good. It felt a little like, I'm not going to lie and say I wasn't like, oh God, like I hope. And I'm like, no, you know what? It doesn't matter. It's Sunday. Like, I don't care. Like, you people can wait for me till tomorrow. But I'm not going to lie and say it was easy. It definitely wasn't easy. I was thinking about it a little bit.
Yeah.
But just trying to be present in the moment, I think, and like enjoy life, because there's no purpose of, living to work.
Right.
Like, you work so that you live. So I don't want to be a slave to work, and just try to find that balance to feel like a human, but also be successful.
Exactly. One of the greatest role models you can have for that is the other professionals, your doctor, your dentist. I mean, for goodness sake, even the woman or man who cuts your hair. I mean, you can't call them or see them anytime you choose. It's on their schedule. And guess what? You say, okay, yeah, I'll take Tuesday at 2:30. Because that's what, Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you can get.
That's what you have. Thank you. I'll be there, and I'll be there early. Yeah, exactly. So if we treat ourselves the same way, and again, going back to that big why, going back to that first domino, there's a reason why we pick it. And when we spend some time with the focusing question to make sure that we're picking the right domino, then the next step is to protect it. Right. And that's where this chapter starts to go to stringing a number of successes in a row. That's the continuity. That's that Seinfeld example of crossing off the days that he wrote a joke and keeping it continuous. 66 days, it's what's been offered to us to create a habit. But making sure that we do that on purpose for the reason that we've decided and protecting that. Somebody else give me something.
Of me personally, I think this is where I struggle the most. Lately I did learn a lot. I read a lot of books, and now it is the time for me to put it in practice. Like even finding out about my focusing question and sticking to them, or having a schedule, lead generation or whatever, and stick to it. I do it today, I don't do it tomorrow, and that I'm not feeling good about doing that, but I don't know how I will stop. I mean, not stop, like I will keep doing it.
Mhm.
I don't struggle with scrolling the phone or stuff like that, no, but today I have my schedule, I have to make this call. For example, I have a schedule this morning to send out some letter. I didn't do it. And the day is almost ending. Why I didn't do it, I don't know. I don't know where is the answer.
Well,
And it's making me.
yeah, I'm sorry, I
Okay.
didn't mean to jump in.
So I'm not feeling good about that, and I'm trying to find ways to fight it, to fight that. And I remember, I always find an excuses not to do what I'm supposed to do. In the Millionaire Real Estate book, he said, don't be something like, don't be a long-term student. So just do it.
Yeah,
And
after a while, it's not about more knowing, it's about more doing.
more doing. I think I'm still learning. That's my excuse. But I'm a little confused. I'm still a little confused, but I will find my way out.
And that's okay. And remember, nobody succeeds alone, so reach out. And so getting back to the book and to the section that we're talking about, wow, just went right out of my mind. It was something brilliant too. What were you talking about? You were talking about,
The focusing questions
yeah.
and protecting them.
Oh, about making the decision and then not protecting it, about not doing it. Yeah. So diving back into that, it's to me, it's one of three things. One, a real true life emergency happened and you had to leave. And I mean, like the kidney was delivered and you needed to be at the hospital. I mean, a real emergency. Okay. Or it just wasn't really the thing that you were married to. And therefore, you allowed other things to get in there. So maybe sending out the letters wasn't actually the thing that you should have been doing. It's just a thought. Why did it take you off track? Why did you not send it out? And you're like, oh, I don't know. Well, take some time and think about that. And then protect against it or decide, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this instead because that speaks more to me. So why did you not send out the letters when you put it on your schedule and set out time? Why did that happen? There's where you have to find, just saying, oh, I didn't get to it, and beating yourself up. Oh, by the way, you get 20 seconds to do that, and then you must move on. You must move on from that. Then you need to focus back on why I was doing it. What was the reason? Was it to find a listing? Perhaps. Okay, so that didn't happen today, virtue of these letters. You can replace, put it back in some other part of your schedule, or start calling people. What else could I do right now? What's the thing that I could do right now that if I did it, it would make everything else easier? And do that. I think that this book, and I please, Carly, is that your hand raised up again, or is that from before?
Sorry, no.
That's all right. No, I just didn't want to miss you if it was. No issue. I know you're.
I mean, I do have something to say though.
Please.
I think sometimes it gets like hard and you don't know like the direction that you're really supposed to be going in. Like what is the most productive? What is the most beneficial? I think for me, it's sometimes just like a whirlwind and I'm like, oh my God, I don't even know where to focus. I think I have a little bit of ADD, but that sometimes
No,
And
I
then
don't,
the
I
amount
don't,
of like flooding.
yeah. I think that we're hearing that from a lot of the people who are sharing. And I'm also hearing, well, it's hard. And it is. It is hard. It is hard until, like Silva said, and like I said, until you figure it out. And even in doing that, there are still days when it's hard. I don't feel like it. I don't want to. It's cold. It's hot. I rather, it is hard. That's why there has to be the focusing question gets you to the purpose of it. And it's not necessarily the purpose of today. That's why I really encourage people to read back through this section and understand that what we call the GPS at Keller Williams is a focus out, try 20 years. Try 20 years. And then say, okay, if this is what I want, this is what I want my life to look like, what would it have to look like in 10 years? What would it have to look like in 5 years?
What you just said. Oh, okay, go ahead.
No, go
Sorry.
ahead.
I thought you
No,
were done.
jump in.
So what you just said make me think of page 148, where he was talking about the $100 versus 200. And when I was reading it, my mind, oh, I would take the 100 now. Why should I wait next year to get the 200?
Exactly.
I was wrong.
Thank you for being
So
honest. Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah. And,
have to think 5 years from now. And
well, and so here's the thing. So let me flip that just a little bit for you. You don't have to do anything. And you don't have to think 5 years from now. But if we're talking about, which we do all the time at Keller Williams, if we're talking about a life by design, I want you to design the whole thing. Design it all the way out. That's how you know when the guy calls and he wants to give you yet another update on the property that you just talked to him yesterday, and I don't need to tell you, and I've got 100 other things. That's how you figure out what you need to do. What's the appropriate thing to do in that moment based on what you want in your life 20 years from now. In this book, I love the section on the Marshmallow Test. I remember back from other psychology books, they talk about the marshmallow with the kids, and they give them, there's a marshmallow in front of them, and they say, if you don't eat that for the next 5 minutes, at that point, I'll give you 2. So don't eat this one for 5 minutes. And after the 5 minutes up, you'll have 2 instead of 1. And how many kids did that whole delayed gratification, because there it is. It's so real. I must do it now. And yet you could get more if you just waited a little bit, if you made a different decision. That's the whole point of that. And that's where the struggle is real, moment to moment. That's why having this purpose, this why, knowing what your driving force is, that's what makes the decisions easier. And finding that first domino. I keep going back to that because the image is really small. The first domino, my first domino is to make sure that I am up at 6:30 and on the early birds call. I found that if I did that every single day, I just fell into my schedule. And from the results that I've started to get, then it's like, I don't want to miss it. This has been the secret sauce. This has been the magic. What could be more important that I can't do after 12 o'clock? So it changes. It's a mindset thing. And you do, was it Rick this morning? Somebody said recently, to get to better, you have to go through different. And you have to get uncomfortable. And you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable because you're changing, you're righting the ship. You're going on a different journey, and that journey is yours. Anybody? I'm talking a lot. I want other people to talk. We'll sit in silent thoughts for a minute.
You're very inspirational, Donna. I think it's good when you talk. You give everyone words of wisdom.
That's why they call me Auntie Donna. You live long enough and you pay attention.
I mean, and Rick is awesome. I absolutely love him, but he's had success like in so many different ways for so long. So it's nice to hear. Like, I feel like it's relatable, like especially when you talk, because you've really, you've done all these things that we're doing now. So I find it, even more helpful because you understand like those exact positions. Well, I'm sure he does too. Like, since you're in an agent position, I'm sure it's, very different.
Yeah, and here's the thing, Carly, you've had a lot of successes too. You've had a lot of success.
I had a very, 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 very good first year. And I have my big why, and I think that's why I did so well. But because of my big why, I feel like I almost put too much pressure on myself, and that's why I hit that burnout mode. Because like for me, like failing wasn't an option, and I, reached that point of just complete burnout because I was not going to give up. So I ran myself into the ground by trying,
Right.
so
You did.
hard. And
You were doing what we talked about on the top of page 100. You wound yourself up in the morning, you got it all ready, and then you flew out the door, putting every little fire out and running everywhere. And it is not sustainable. And it really isn't your big why. I don't think anybody has that as their big why. If we really think about it, we just feel like
no,
Yeah.
I meant like I know like my purpose and like what I want to accomplish, and I think that's what led me down that path because I thought it was productive, but really it was just being busy, and those little things didn't add up to the things that really do matter. It was putting out the little fires and all that, and I like my gym in the morning is like my time. So like what I've been trying to do is jump on those calls at 7:38. Even though I'm at the gym, at least I'm still present and being productive, because it's like I mentally and physically need the gym because that's like my outlet.
Yeah, don't give that up.
But I'm still trying to be productive in the work area as well. So I'm trying to kind of put both together, or I'll ride my spin bike and listen to it, or whatever I have to do.
Good, whatever you need to do that. And since you said such lovely things about me, I do want to share one thing. Okay? And here it is.
Yeah.
In the last 2 years, I have gotten out of my own way. And that was a major change. So I spend a lot of time, I just celebrated 20 years in this business. It's the last 2 years that I finally said, oh, wow, really? Just do that? I let go of all of my preconceived notions. I let go of all the stuff I thought was the right thing to do, and just said, you know what? I'm not getting the results that I want. I'm not happy with my business. I wasn't really happy with my life surrounding my business. The rest of my life is dandy, but my business was missing. So I stopped thinking about what do I think I should do, and just did what I was told, i.e. the books, my coaches, the different calls, and magically through that is where I figured it out. And as I said, I had a big why. That was my big why. Many people knew what my big why was. All of a sudden, through that process, that wasn't my big why. It was great, but it wasn't my big why, because once I found my big why, once I hit on it, then it was like water down a duck's back. It was just like, wow, everything became easier or unnecessary. It was like magic. But it was by opening up my mind and saying, maybe I should just listen to what somebody else is. Why don't I just try that? She's getting the results that I want to get. She seems to have an interesting life as well. And I like her, whoever that was. I have a person in my mind of who it was for me. Why don't I just do what she's doing, number one, and what she says that I should do, number two? Why don't I just do that? And success.
Yeah, sometimes you can't reinvent the wheel.
Well, you can add to the wheel, but remember, again, the red book, before we get to creativity, we just go with the models. So
That
that's,
actually just reminded me. Isn't Pivot Shift doing something today at
1 o'clock.
oh sorry, pressed the wrong button.
That's right.
Is that in the Zoom room or is that just on Facebook Live?
I think, oh, well, it's always on,
It's on a
it-
pivot page.
it's on the pivot page, thank you. And that'll be recorded there. If it's on the pivot page, it's recorded. So if you can't be there at 1, you can see it again. And that's Meg Daddy. And she's talking about how to build your business. She's talking to 4 or 5 people who have doing it their way. See, that's the most important thing. That's where your big why and your future self and your productivity and your purpose all together come together. When you start to say, what do I want to do? She's talking to people. Kathy Heidi is one of the people, and I know that her specific avenue, I think like 75% of her business, and she's like this far away from being an MREA. They all are dog owners. And that is like something that drives her. You all know that I do that too, but that she does it in a different way than I do. And so it's people going to be sharing about that. Being in those rooms, then you start to think, well, you know, maybe I don't have to do fill in the blank, whatever it is that you hate doing in the business. Maybe I can do this instead. They found a way. So yeah, that's a great example of finding your purpose and tying it to your business and having it drive you.
Okay, I'm just gonna keep listening to you, Donna, and I'll find my way.
Well, I'll keep doing my best to share the nuggets that I take from other people. See, it
Hey,
is.
Donna,
Yeah, wait, Suzanne, was that a raised hand?
It was. I wanted to say that, before I was a real estate agent, I was actually a psychology researcher. And, somewhat ironically, the things that I studied were human attention and motivation and all these things that tie in wonderfully to business and real estate that I have such a hard time applying to my own life. And I think that for me, I get frustrated sometimes because I have a preconceived notion of what kind of my baseline abilities are and all of these little skills and tasks that we need to perform to get to success. And what I know to be the truth is that we all do have variability in all of these different skills. But what I also know to be true is that human beings are trainable. Your brain is trainable, your thoughts are trainable, your emotions are trainable. And, sometimes you just have to treat yourself like a little puppy and train it. Give yourself the rewards when you have your successes, kind of come to terms with what your level is in these different areas. And maybe there are some areas worth pursuing and improving upon that are kind of lower hanging fruit for you. And some are going to be a lot more difficult, but it's all trainable. You can do it. We can do it. It's, my words for this year were decide and execute, because I get caught up in what is the right decision? What the heck do I do? And then the time passes and I don't get the letters out and I don't make the phone calls. Decide and execute. Give yourself 5 minutes, make a decision, do it. And again, reward your successes. And I think, along the way, you'll find that you're doing things that you never thought you were going to do, things that you didn't think you were good at, and things that are bringing you success along the way. And that's coming from somebody. I moved over here in October. I haven't done any business. It's horrible. I'm very frustrated. But every day I'm trying to push myself to do all of these things that I'm learning about and not getting stuck in that student mode, as Marcel was saying. We're kind of taking this all in, and it's a big shift in mindset. And now just trying to build upon it and decide and execute. And reward yourself.
Suzanne, that's excellent advice. Thank you so much for that. I totally agree. Push yourself. Go ahead.
Can I just want to ask Susan a question. Did you try to answer the focusing question on the book? Like trying to find your one thing in every single category? I think that was very helpful for me. And what I want to ask everybody also is on page 151, who was able to read through all the page? I mean, all the page, not skipping, because he kept repeating himself. At the bottom of the page, he said, I hope you hang in there and read the entire thing. Who did? I did.
I did, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No, that's an excellent, yeah, that page 151 pretty much nails it on the head. It really does, it really, and you do have to get to mastery, we know that you do have to fall in love with the boring, with the repetitive, doing the same thing over and over and over again. When it's getting results, to do it over and over and over. Anna?
Donna, I just want to share and say with proud that I got this book. I love it.
It's
You
a
know,
great,
it's such a great book because I can open every time any page and I'm learning every single day.
yes.
And you need to read a lot. You can
Tell
just
us,
read.
tell us what's the name of the book, yeah.
It's called 1000 Little Things Happy, Successful People Do Differently.
Yeah, you can get it on Amazon. And it truly is, it's inspiring. This is another book that we share from often on the morning call because it's positive and it is real. Even though they're in short little clips, you read there and like, oh my gosh, that happened to me yesterday. Wow, why didn't I see this yesterday? Or I needed this morning. It really, you know, I'm going to say half, but it's probably more of being successful in this business is staying in a good mindset, because there's so much coming at you that we are in a business that is prone to rejection. People say no to us all the time. We have to keep searching for the yes. And that's why you need that purpose behind what you're doing, because it is frustrating, and know exactly where you're going, which allows you to say no to other things. Anna?
So when I got this book done, I opened it, that page was 247. And that's the first one, what I read, it was treat everyone nicely, even those who are rude to you. Treat everyone with kindness and respect, even those who are rude to you, not because they are nice, but because you are. Do this for 30 days, and I guarantee you, you will see the rudeness around you dissipate. I think it's so great for our business, right?
Yeah, it's perfect for our business. And then I like so treat them kindly because you're kind, not because they are, because you're kind. Right?
Exactly.
Right. I'm always looking for my control in every situation. How do I control this? Yeah. And to Suzanne, when you're talking about training your mind, so that whole first thought, second thought theory. So if something happens to you and it like, ooh, that's the first thought. But the second thought is, oh, bless your heart, you must be having a rough day. Yeah, and I mean, it just changes how you'll march through the difficult, because real estate's difficult. And the market's difficult right now. All of that are true facts. And yet this is where we choose to spend our time, make our living, support our families, and build our dreams. So how do we wrestle it to the ground and come home happy people? And I think that's part of what the focusing question is. What else do we have before where are we on time? Oh, we're over. Wow.
You're over.
Okay, well, I'll let everybody go unless anybody has any final thoughts. I want to thank you so much for participating. I love this book. I really do. Spend some time with it. If it's not hitting you just yet, go back and read it again. Think about it as you go through your day and you hit difficult situations. What's the one thing, even if you have to say it while gritting your teeth, what is the one thing that if I did it right now, everything else would be either easier or unnecessary? I tell you, it has changed my life. Yeah, because there's so much that is unnecessary. and we can make our own lives easier. Anybody else before we leave?
I heard Susan say that she's very frustrated because she is in the business since October and she haven't closed anything yet. So let me tell you this. Did you hear my accent?
Yes,
Did you
ma'am.
hear so you have to pay attention in order to understand what I'm saying, but I did it. And what you have that I didn't have when I was starting is the people in your phone. I came from another country with no one here. When you join real estate, they tell you that your first client are the people in your phone, your friends, your family, the one that trusted you and they know you. I think you have to get on the phone and call them. And that's what I did. I built a database and I stick to it. And now I'm getting referrals from the client that they serve, the rental and all those things. I was cold calling in the beginning just to get myself used to call. But what I'm doing right exactly is the people that I met, open house, or I talk once and I'm sticking to them and working with them and getting business from them. Get on the phone, okay?
Yeah,
Beautiful.
I've been making my calls. You know, one of the biggest issues was I was at another brokerage. And I had a really great year last year at that other brokerage. And I think I just needed to shift. I needed this to shift and to get used to everything here. And now it's full speed ahead. So
Yay.
hopefully we'll make some money soon.
Yeah. Hope is not a strategy. You're going to make some. There you go. Well, I so appreciate everybody. Unless anybody has any final thoughts, I'm going to say thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming and taking this book really seriously.
Donna.
Right. All righty. Thank you. See you in the Wednesday after. See you at family reunion if you're going.